Now, don't be discouraged by this fact, because it's understandable. You can understand it. Like, all it is, it's like using the imperial system and the metric system, but with art and colors instead. Like the metric system, it's just, this way is just easier than the yellow, red, and blue. Now watch what happens when I change one of these. Watch what happens when I change this to 0. Watch this. Wow, I get yellow from an RGB? Yeah. Crazy, ain't it? What happens if you turn the middle one 0? You get red. So like you got yellow, and when you change the middle one, you get that magenta. Which, funny enough, it already tells you on this side with the cyan, magenta, and yellow. And when you change the last one, you get the cyan, which also lets you know that it's cyan with the C and M. Wow. So yeah, you're not really using yellow at all. You're using, yeah, okay, yeah, you get the idea. With this, you get a surprising amount of ways to color things, which is mostly why I don't really use color pencils that much, because it can be very deceiving and really, really hard to do when it comes to coloring. Because yellow doesn't exist. Well, not exist. It's just a mixture of two colors. It's an illusion. So you can't really make art of that really well because it's, an illusion. I'm going to prove to you, okay, I'm going to show you some proof. I'm going to get on, Microsoft Paint probably. And I'm going to prove to you on how the color is made through these colors, which is going to be really cool. Wait for this. This is going to be cool. I mean, that is if you're in art and stuff. Watch what happens when I put magenta next to cyan. It turns blue. And with yellow, you get green. And when you put magenta with yellow, you get red. Keep in mind, this is just mixing colors. So yes, in some art, you're using the RGB in the CYMK, not the red, yellow, and blue as you thought. As you can see, they work really well with illusions. You can make a lot of illusions with those colors. And speaking of illusions, you can make 3D in art. Yeah, I think you already know that, but there's actually more than one way to do it. So I'm going to show you. One way to give something a 3D effect is through shading. So even though you can make something look 3D, like just by doing this, you can also do it through shading. But you can also use this. When you put them together, you make something really, really good. Like this, for example. Yes, I did write all that information down right when I was doing art as well. 3D is all over in the art world. You even got different types of them. 2-point perspective, 1-point perspective. And when you get really, really good at it, you can make a lot of illusions based on that concept. Come to think of it, that's how I'm so fast with art. That's how I'm able to make art within a day sometimes. And when you put those type of patterns together with the shading and the lines and the shapes, you can pretty much make anything you want. And yes, this does not relate to either digital or traditional. This concept works for both digital and on paper. This whole idea of shading in colors and ways it works for every artist. When it comes to making something simple or making something complex. Shading is there for everyone, digital or not. And that, my friend, is a key ingredient for most artwork you do. It's how I was able to make so much, like you see in the background, without any effort, because I had faith in myself that I could do it. And you can, because I just showed you. So, you're just probably thinking, okay, why don't you just show me how to, shade? I can, but it's just a very deep subject. The reason why I say it's a very deep thing to teach is because it just depends on what you want to make. Like usually with shading, it's either this, or just simple darkness. Which also sometimes requires more, things to make things that have depth, which you can do with just basic shapes. Believe it or not, my first artworks were actually inspired by Japanese animation. That is also a very deep thing to talk about. I'm going to start off with what me and my brother always known. And that is, start with a circle, start with a chin, make some guidelines. Now you know what to put. Let's say you get done with all that, then you can work on the angle, or what direction you want it to face. In other words, lines leads to shapes. Shapes leads to faces, and, well, you get the picture. That's why it's better to line draw sometimes, because it's a very easy thing to do. All you have to do is just remove the guidelines, and you'll just get something like this. However, you're going to need to do a little bit more shading to get something even better. And with that, you're going to need different pencil, different pencil types. Which goes from soft or hard when it comes to your pencil. It's how heavy you shade and how heavy you draw. And when you get that perfect, that perfect type of shade and that perfect type of, shading with your pencil and that blending, you can get something like this. And I absolutely love it. However, you could argue that it's just easier on a computer because, well, you don't really have to worry about lighting unless if you're making something look three-dimensional on a computer, which is you're already doing that just by shading anyway. When it comes to doing things on digital, on a computer, you don't really have to have a Q-tip or anything to shade things with, because the computer does it for you. Because if I don't want something dark, then I can always just automatically just make it light. And the computer just does that for you. No blending needed. And that's where people are going to start getting confused. You see, when I mentioned it being hard to explain, I really meant that. Because it just depends on what you're wanting to make, honestly. But like my art teacher always told me, just keep it light until it's right. It's hard for some people because you got to know when to shade and when not to. But I got something to tell you that will help with that. Remember that it's perspective. Pretend that there's a light and color the other side darker, so you can get that illusion. Well, that's all for right now. For art, though. There's more I want to talk about with art, but this video is a little way too long already, and I'm going to be moving on to a different topic. So, I'll see you guys on my YouTube.